We've got some interesting comments here from Marcelo Bielsa, of course, the manager of Uruguay, facing Colombia in the semifinals Wednesday in Charlotte. Quote, "I'm sure that football is in a process of decline. That is to say that more and more people are watching football, but it is becoming less and less attractive because what made this game the best game in the world is not there." Herc, football's less attractive? What do you make of what Bielsa's saying here?
It was when I saw Uruguay versus Brazil, I'll tell you that much.
Shots fired.
No, but to his point, all seriousness, Marcelo Bielsa is right, and he's not the first one to come out and say this. Arsene Wenger has said this. Johnny Infantino, take that for what it's worth, has said this. We see the creation of the Kings League in Europe and in Latin America, and they're trying to find new ways for new generations to consume the sport. We get all these reports of actual active time on the field is close to like 50 minutes instead of the 90 that's actually played. And how can the newer generations consume this game in a way where they're actually invested going forward? I think that's what Marcelo Bielsa is trying to get at. It is in a process of decline because you're not having these new viewership numbers. You're not having this new interest. And that he is correct. It doesn't help that, at least at the international level, it's considerably much more pragmatic. And pragmatic to a lot of people means boring, because not fun to watch, not aesthetically pleasing in the final third. Certainly these things factor into it. And when you factor in the amount of games these players play and how it's more common to have injuries or more common to see a less attractive football in the final months of the year, it just adds to what he's saying.
What do you think, Alice? Football less enjoyable today than maybe it was 10, 20 years ago?
I think we just got done having a conversation about pressure on managers, right? So if you're a guy that has a short-term job, because you know it's short-term given the pressure, do you think you're going out there to entertain?
Right.
Huh? Do you think you're going to open yourself up? No. You protect first. And that's a lot of what's going on in international football is you're protecting first because it's the one thing that you can actually work on, that it's easier to work on than it is how to break teams down. You don't have a lot of time with national team players. And so what is the first priority? Look, we're going to get the defensive part of the game right. And then whatever we do offensively, that's a plus. That's part of the approach now from international managers, and that's part of the pressure. And so that's why games end up 1-0, and it feels like it's essentially a kick party where everybody's just tackling each other. And that's the game that we saw again between Brazil and Uruguay. Now, there's history there that explains that as well. I think what he's getting to, much more so than the viewership numbers that you're mentioning, Hercules, I think it's just there isn't a lot of players out there that are actually game breakers, that can show that creativity consistently and that are allowed to do so. The geniuses of the game, that has disappeared considerably from the field. You see a lot of athleticism, you see a whole lot of running, you see a whole lot of defending, and it's sort of everybody defends and everybody attacks and so on and so forth.
What's the why? What's the why there? Why
the game has changed. Just look at Barcelona, for example. Barcelona, in some ways, the way of their play became obsolete. And they haven't been able to change and evolve from it, and therefore are finding it difficult because they need to play the game in a different way. Why is Spain being successful in the Euros? Because there's been some evolution in that they still have the possession, but look, we have the young guys that will take on defenders. And there is a change of pace, and then there's a change of speed. And so that's why it's so noticeable to see Lamine Yamal and to see Nico Williams on the other side. Look, they're taking on people. How many of these games that you watch, actually you see people taking on defenders? As we used to do in years past. It doesn't happen. I'll throw a name that Casey will be familiar with from Germany. Pierre Lidwarski, Migahita Lidwarski. A guy who would just take the ball, and I'm going to take you on. I'm going to take you on, and I'm going to take you on again, and I'm going to take you on, and that's what I do. I take another name, old school from Spain, Gordillo, same thing. The guy looked like he was uncoordinated, but he would take you on time and time and time again. That has disappeared from the game consistently, and so that's when you see, you're like, oh, he's taking on players. Right. as if this is something new in the game. Well, it's new now because it doesn't happen. The 1v1 situations are not quite what they used to be, and everybody's falling in love with this pass, and we've lost sight of the goal is over there, people. Yeah. We're attacking over there. That's where the goal is. We're lost sight of that, and we become the game has become about passing and tackling.
What about the traditional number 10? Every team.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, every team had that number 10 in the center of the field.
Yep. Imagine that. Imagine a player like Carlos Valderrama.
Yeah.
For example, is a player like Carlos Valderrama obsolete in today's game? Can you have a Carlos Valderrama on the field? I would always have one on my field if I could pick my team, but you would have people. Protecting him, but you would have people that would watch my team play and say, well, this guy's not defending. This guy's not doing this. This guy not. But what about what he's doing offensively? And so we get so concerned about what we do defensively that we forget about the geniuses of the game. And a guy like Riquelme, for example, that would have played for Bielsa in Argentina. Now, this man was a genius. Crazy, but a genius nonetheless. Does that guy fit in today's game? I don't know. Or Ariel Ortega, another Argentinian genius. Does that guy fit in today's game? I don't know, but he fit for Bielsa, and I think that's what he's talking about. We're losing that player in favor of the athleticism, the passing game, in favor of we're going to defend first. We're missing out on the geniuses of the game.
Well, I think it comes down to a few things. One, first of all, we've been watching a lot of games, either the Euros or Copa America, and I've seen far more good games than I've seen poor games. And it doesn't have to be 5-0 or anything like that. It's just you're seeing games where teams are with the right attitude, playing well, entertaining, and going from there.
Would you say that even about the quarterfinal round of the Copa America? Because I did think that the fact that there's no extra time influenced, and maybe it's the fact now that in hindsight, 3 of the 4 went to penalties, but it felt like those games, significant portions of a lot of those games were influenced by the fact that the team, or at least one team, knew there wasn't extra time coming and that they were almost playing.
But I think FIFA does this all the time, and other federations do it, where they think, how can we improve this? Golden goal was one of those things. Let's have golden goal. And then you realize both teams said the risk of conceding outweighed taking risks to score the winning goal. And all right, let's just go to penalties. So that kind of where at least if you conceded in extra time, you knew you had time to get it back. So I think FIFA does these things and federations do these things to see if they're improving the game and then realize it doesn't quite work out. So then we'll go back to figure out the next thing. I also think that it's a case where until you prove it differently, why were the Riquelmes kind of obsolete? Because they were losing. Because teams were figuring out ways how to beat them by having this guy in the field that walks around and does nothing.
Yeah.
Until you prove to me that that player is so important because he's winning championships. No, we're saying that. We put 11 athletes on the field. We beat the brilliant player walking around who's not winning, who's not so good that he's influencing their team to victories.
This is what Bielsa's talking about, this mentality over here.
But even, I mean...
Because you keep losing, Bielsa, and there's a reason why you never win a tournament.
All right.
You're right. Listen, I've been very underwhelmed with both tournaments, to be honest.
Really?
The quality in both tournaments, yeah. I think there have been more lackluster games than actually good games. And we can go to the Euros and say, look at the overtime. We can go to here and say, there's no overtime. There's penalty kicks.
Even Jude Bellingham hitting a bicycle to take him into overtime.
But
then Harry Kane
that game was pretty bad.
It was bad. And out of all the games that played, we're talking about maybe a handful. And the game that was the most exciting was a Turkey versus Georgia, right? So what I'm trying to say is, I think it has more to do with how we're just trying to squeeze every single ounce out of these players. That you just congest the schedule.
You know what we should do?
And there's too many games.
Expand a Club World
Cup.
So
at the end, that's what I'm saying.
Expand the next World Cup.
At the end, you put these summer tournaments, and these guys are just knackered. They have nothing left. So we get these pragmatic defensive games and whatever's left of the players.
But a lot of these pragmatic defensive games that you're talking about, funny enough, are coming from the top teams
Yeah.
in the competition.
Exactly.
France.
Right?
With
Yeah.
world-class players like
Yeah.
Messi and Mbappe.
Or England, France. I mean,
Yeah.
they are the ones that are sort of offering up this sort of performances. And so to your point, yeah, that Turkey-Georgia is exciting. Yeah. You're thinking, well, this is, in theory, these are some of the lesser teams in the competition, and yet they're the ones that are willing to take chances, to take risks. This game that it's about risk to some degree. And when we think of Brazil of the past, they didn't concern themselves with how are we going to find balance if we have Ronaldinho and we have Rivaldo and we have Ronaldo on the field and then we have Cafu going down the right-hand side and we have Roberto Carlos going down the left-hand side. How are we going to find this balance? And how are we? No, they're not. That's not their thought process. Their thought process is we have all these guys, so we're going to take the game to you.
Yeah, and then how does that thought process change?
Yeah.
Because we have all these components and we lost.
No, but that team won.
Well, I know that
Right,
too.
right.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is then if you have a team with all this talent and then you're not able to get over the top because a team that is pragmatic beats you and wins a tournament, and then everybody in your country is celebrating the victory, and you're like, well, but we played really well, but lost.
But they do it over and over again. You look at Argentina, World Cup 2014, final, they lost, sure. But 15, 16 Copa America, they lost. And penalty kicks, whatever you want. And then they went 2021, they won Copa America. 2022, they won the World Cup. But they're in these constant finals. France, on the other side, the same thing. 2016 on, they're in the finals and winning everything. And it's two very pragmatic styles. It's just the way the game is played now in international football.
If I can bring it back to Bielsa's comments and a point you made about pressure. This was part of kind of a longer commentary by Bielsa. He ended it with this. What we should all do is ignore the scenario that is presented to us where controversy, discussion, accusation, the determinant of responsibility become an obsession. That deteriorates the climate in which football must be played.
Don't judge Bielsa.
So results.
I think he's talking about us.
So he's,
I think he's talking about Football Americas.
Basically what he's saying is
he's saying
his results don't matter.
It's what he's saying.
It's a
don't put so much pressure on results.
Yeah, it's
don't have shows screaming about results because then that gets me fired when I need to be working on my team, right? It's kind of he wants more time for the managers and less focus on the results.
And he's a romantic of the game.
Yeah.
Sure.
Marcelo Bielsa, and he's an old school guy, and always an unconventional thinker. So I am not surprised that he's saying this thing, El Loco Bielsa.
Yeah.
It's not surprised. And in some ways, he has sort of revolutionized the way people see the coaching position. But the truth of the matter is, results is what judge not only managers, but players. Think about the judgment and the thought of Lionel Messi prior to him winning Copa America
100%.
and then the World Cup.
In his own country.
And
Yes.
in his own country.
Yeah.
By his own people.
Yeah.
By Bielsa's own people.
Yes.
And what Messi has now become post-winning the World Cup. Results matter.
Well, why was Maradona always because he delivered the World Cup? No. Now that Messi has, a lot of that conversation has gone away.
There you have it. Marcelo Bielsa saying football is in a process of decline. As you can see, up for some debate here on
They shifted us around.
We got
Short Casey is.
moving the formation.
I know. I'm the shortest guy in that picture.
I don't think Sepp's being like on the outside. He doesn't like being on the outside.
I gotta get my touches in. We're on Tuesday after Argentina against Canada, and the semifinal should be around 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. on the East Coast.